1. We're checking out this interesting 1978 Chevy C20 I found on Craigslist. And let me tell you, it's one of those honest old workhorses that just keeps on trucking. For $2,000, you're looking at a 3/4-ton long bed pickup with the classic 350 V8 paired to a turbo 350 automatic transmission. This red beast has definitely seen its share of miles. The odometer's rolled over past 100K, but that's pretty normal for these sturdy C20s. The seller's being straight up about its condition. It's tired but trusty, and I really appreciate that kind of honesty. It's got the basics covered with power steering and power brakes, plus a canopy to keep your cargo protected. The good news is that rust isn't a major issue here, which is pretty rare for a truck of this age. Look, this isn't a show truck by any means, but for $2,000, you're getting a solid work truck that could serve well as a wood hauler or farm truck. It's got good tires, and these old Chevy 350s are known for their reliability when maintained. Sure, it's showing its age, but these C20s were built like tanks, and this one seems to have plenty of life left for someone who needs a no-nonsense work truck. Remember, at this price point, you're not getting perfection. You're getting a functional piece of American automotive history that's ready to put in more honest work. If you're looking for a basic, reliable workhorse without breaking the bank, this 78 C20 might just be worth checking out. 2. We're looking at something really special on Craigslist. A 1961 Chevy C10 Apache. And let me tell you, these classics are getting harder to find, especially in rust-free condition. At $11,900, we're looking at what the seller claims is a solid rust-free example of these beloved Apache pickups. The odometer shows 28,000 miles, though with vehicles this age, it's always wise to assume it's rolled over unless there's documentation proving otherwise. It's equipped with an automatic transmission, which makes it more user-friendly for modern driving. The seller mentions lots of new parts, but doesn't specify what they are, and that's something you definitely want to ask about before making the trip to see it. These details matter when you're talking about a 60-plus-year-old truck. Now, I have to be honest here. While the price isn't outrageous for a rust-free Apache in today's market, you'd really want to inspect this truck thoroughly. The listing is pretty sparse on details, which means you'll want to ask lots of questions. What engine is in it? What's the condition of the interior? What exactly are those new parts? Has it been restored or is it original? These C10 Apaches have become really desirable collector trucks, and their values have been climbing. They're known for their distinctive styling with those eyebrow fenders and that classic Apache grille. If this one's as rust-free as claimed, it could be a solid investment or a great starting point for a build. 3. We're checking out something pretty special. A 1971 Chevy C20 that's got some serious muscle under the hood, and honestly, sounds like it's been well maintained. Let's talk about what makes this truck interesting at $14,500. First off, the seller's emphasizing something crucial. This is a rust-free example, which is pretty rare for a 50-year-old truck. We're talking solid floors, rockers, kick panels, and cab corners, all the usual rust spots that typically plague these old workhorses. The biggest highlight here is the newer 454 big block with a fresh top end. That's a serious power plant, folks, and the 50 psi oil pressure at idle suggests it's healthy. You're getting some nice upgrades too. Disc brakes, a big plus for safety, new wheels and tires, a fresh radiator, and new brake components including the power booster and master cylinder. What makes this truck even more interesting is the factory-side toolbox, which the seller notes is rare, and it comes with factory AC equipment, though it sounds like it needs to be hooked up. The tow package makes it ready for some serious hauling duty. At $14,500 firm, it's priced in line with the current market for a solid, big block C20, especially considering the rust-free status and recent mechanical work. If you're looking for a classic Chevy truck that you can actually use and enjoy, this one seems worth checking out. Just remember to verify all those mechanical claims during inspection. 4. We're looking at a pretty sweet 1971 Chevy C10 that's popped up on Craigslist for $18,000. And this one's got some serious muscle hiding under the hood. Let's talk about what makes this truck special. First off, it's packing a 383 stroker engine with only 40K miles on it. That's a serious performance upgrade from the original engine, known for making great power while maintaining good street manners. The seller's using this truck regularly, which is always a good sign. It means we're not dealing with a garage queen that might have hidden issues from sitting. Finished in black and showing 80,000 miles on the odometer, this C10 seems to be a well-maintained driver. The seller mentions it's dependable and starts every time, which is exactly what you want to hear. They've also invested in new tires, dated March 2023, and apparently there are too many newer parts to list, though it would have been nice to know what those parts are. The asking price of $18,000 is in the ballpark for a clean 71 C10, especially one with a 383-stroker that's been well maintained. These early 70s C10s have become incredibly popular in recent years, and their values reflect that. The clean title and current registration are definitely positive points. Look, this isn't a show truck, but it sounds like a solid, reliable classic that you can actually drive and enjoy. If you're in the market for a classic C10 that's been upgraded for better performance while maintaining daily driver reliability, this one might be worth checking out. Just make sure to get a good look at those newer parts during inspection. 5. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1977 Chevy K20 Scottsdale that's caught my eye, listed at $9,400. This is one of those trucks that really represents the golden era of square-body Chevys. What makes this one special is that it's a Camper Special K20 with the one-year-only trim package. That's a detail true collectors will appreciate. The truck's showing 97,356 miles on the odometer and comes with the classic combination of a 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, plus it's got four-wheel drive, which is always a big plus. The seller's throwing in some rust-free OEM front fenders, which is actually a valuable bonus because finding clean original body panels for these old trucks is getting harder every year. It's painted blue, and being a Scottsdale trim level, it would have come with some nice additional comfort features from the factory. Now let's be real here. At $9,400, you're getting what appears to be a solid foundation for either a restoration project or just a classic daily driver. The seller mentions lots of newer stuff but doesn't specify what. That's definitely something you'd want to ask about before making the trip to see it. These K20s were built tough, and being a 3/4 ton truck with 4x4, it's got the capability to still do real work today. The Camper Special package means it came with heavier duty components to handle more payload, which is a desirable feature. 6. We're looking at something really special, a 1965 Ford Falcon Ranchero, and this one's particularly interesting because it's a survivor, not a restored vehicle. Listed at $18,000 OBO, this blue beauty is powered by a 289 V8 with a 4-barrel carb, paired to a C4 automatic transmission. That's a solid, reliable powertrain combination that Ford used for years. The odometer shows just 20,683 miles, though with a vehicle this age, it's likely rolled over at least once. What makes this Ranchero interesting is its originality and solid condition. The seller's being refreshingly honest about everything. They note it's a good driver and very dependable, which is exactly what you want to hear about a classic. The body is described as straight with no known rust in the critical areas like floorboards, bed, or body panels, which is huge for these old car trucks. Inside, you're getting some nice features with bucket seats and a console, and the seller notes the interior is in nice condition. However, they're upfront about the fact that it needs paint, and that's actually a good thing for potential buyers to know exactly what they're getting into. At $18,000 OBO, you're looking at a price that reflects both the vehicle's rarity and its current condition. These Falcon-based Rancheros are becoming increasingly collectible, and finding one that's a solid original survivor is getting harder each year. 7. We're checking out a 1973 Chevy El Camino that's caught my attention at $5,200, and I've got to be straight with you about this one. Let's start with the good stuff. It's got its original 350 V8 that's had a newer rebuild, which is definitely a plus. The seller's added some nice touches like a newer dual exhaust system, and it's rolling on 15x8 rally wheels, which look great on these El Caminos. The disc brakes are another welcome feature for better stopping power. Now, here's where we need to be real. This car truck has been sitting for 4 years, and that's something to consider seriously. Even though the seller says it runs and drives nice, any vehicle that's been sitting that long is going to need some attention. The fact that they recommend trailering it if you're coming from far away tells you something. The body's described as super nice, but there's an important caveat. There's rust starting under the vinyl top. This is actually a pretty common issue with vinyl-topped vehicles from this era, and it can be more extensive than what's visible at first glance. You'll definitely want to check that area carefully. At $5,200 with a clean title, you're looking at a project that's still drivable, which is better than many project cars out there. The 73 El Camino has that classic muscle car era styling, and with the rebuilt 350, you've got a solid foundation to work with. 8. We're looking at a seriously well-built 1984 Chevy C10 short bed that's got my attention. And let me tell you why this $17,500 truck is worth talking about. First off, let's talk about what's under the hood. This isn't your average small block. We're looking at a built 406 with low miles, paired with a Muncie M21 4-speed manual transmission. That's a serious performance combination, folks. Add in the 12-bolt rear end with a Detroit locker, and you've got a proper muscle truck setup. The seller has clearly invested heavily in this build. The entire front suspension has been upgraded with tubular A-arms, new ball joints, and Western 2-inch drop spindles. They've also installed a brand new clutch assembly, which is crucial with that kind of power. The attention to detail continues with a full custom factory-style interior, tilt wheel, and complete Dynamat sound deadening. Those new 18-inch billet specialty staggered wheels with Nitto tires give it a perfect stance, and the fresh wood bed kit adds that classic touch. What's really impressive here is that this is still wearing its original paint. While the seller honestly admits it's not perfect, finding a 97% rust-free square body these days is getting rare. They've added a new Holley 750 carb and full dual exhaust system to let that 406 breathe properly. At $17,500, you're getting a truck that's had pretty much everything mechanical, either rebuilt or replaced, plus tasteful modifications that enhance both performance and comfort. The combination of the built 406, Muncie 4-speed, and Detroit locker means this truck can really perform while still maintaining that classic C10 character. 9. We're looking at a seriously interesting 1971 Chevy K10 Suburban that's been built with some real purpose, listed at $16,500. This isn't your average K10, folks. Let me break down why this rig is special. First off, this was a one-family-owned truck before the current owner, and it's got some rare factory options like the tilt column, tack, bucket seats with console, and overhead AC. But what's really impressive is the mechanical upgrades list. It's extensive. The drivetrain is seriously beefed up with a new Venture 4505-speed transmission featuring a 27% overdrive, pulled from a 2000 Chevy 1-ton. Both front and rear differentials are running Eaton Posey units with 3.08 gears, and it's got a 205 gear drive transfer case. The sellers added differential trusses and upgraded to lubricated U-joints. This thing's built to last. Under the hood, there's a well-built 350 with double hump heads, an RV cam, and HEI ignition. It's set up for regular fuel with 8.7 compression, and they've just done fresh maintenance including a new carb, intake gasket, and ignition components. The utility features are impressive too. Dual receivers, Class 3 front, Class 5 rear, winch power connections, a 40-gallon tank with an electric pump, and a heavy-duty cooling system. The brakes have been upgraded to Hydro Boost from a 1-ton truck. Now let's be honest about the condition. The seller admits there's some rust in the lower areas and it needs rockers, but the floors are solid. That's pretty typical for these old trucks, and at least they're upfront about it. 10. We're checking out a pretty sweet 1971 Chevy El Camino that's just emerged from storage, listed at $22,000. And I've got to say, this one's catching my eye for all the right reasons. Let's talk about what makes this El Camino special. It's rocking a murdered-out look with black paint and matching black interior, plus that aggressive cowl induction hood that really sets off the styling. Under that hood sits a rebuilt 350 V8 paired with a 350 turbo hydromatic transmission, a classic, reliable combination that's hard to beat. The seller's done some smart upgrades while keeping the car's character intact. You've got power steering and power brakes for modern drivability, and while the factory air conditioning is present, it needs to be charged. They've added a modern stereo system and dual exhaust, which the seller says sounds great, and these cars typically do sound fantastic with a proper exhaust setup. What's really impressive is the condition. They're claiming it's rust-free, which is huge for these cars. The bed has been protected with a spray-in liner and comes with a hard tonneau cover, both practical additions that help preserve utility without sacrificing style. The seller notes that the glass, interior, chrome, and stainless are all in excellent shape, which are usually the costly items to restore. 11. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1961 Ford F-104X4 that's had some serious love and investment put into it. Listed at $18,500, this is one of those classic trucks that deserves our attention. Let's talk about what makes this F-100 interesting. First off, it's a California farm truck, which usually means better preservation than trucks from rust-prone regions. The sellers invested over $15,000 in refurbishment, and they've got the receipts to prove it. That's always a good sign when looking at classic trucks. The combination here is quite rare. A long bed F-100 with four-wheel drive from 1961. These weren't common configurations back then, which makes this truck even more intriguing. It's powered by a V8 with a manual transmission, giving you that authentic classic truck experience. The upgrades are thoughtful and practical. They've added power steering and power-assisted brakes, which make these old trucks much more enjoyable to drive in modern traffic. The engine's had a complete overhaul, and it's riding on brand new tires. New seats are another nice touch for comfort. At $18,500, you're looking at a price that reflects both the rarity of this configuration and the significant investment in refurbishment. These early 60s F-100S are getting harder to find, especially in 4x4 form, and finding one that's been properly sorted with documented work is even rarer. 12. We're looking at a 1963 Chevy C10 listed at $6,000. And I've got to be completely honest with you about this one. It's definitely a project truck that needs some attention. Let's start with the positives. The truck's got a 350 small block with a Holley 80670 carb, which is a good foundation. In 2020, it received a fresh coat of metallic blood orange paint with a white interior, and they installed a complete wood bed kit. Those are nice upgrades. The interior's been freshened up with new carpet and seat upholstery, and they've done some mechanical work like installing power brakes and new brake lines. Now, here's where we need to get real. This truck currently isn't running. The seller's straight up about the issues. There's a carburetor flooding problem that developed while trying to fix a leak, and the transmission's got a leak that's likely coming from a gasket. These are fixable issues, but they're something you need to factor into your budget. The odometer shows 29,000 miles, but on a 60-year-old truck, that's likely rolled over at least once. The seller's including various original parts and the original year plates, which is a nice bonus for authenticity. At $6,000, you're buying a project that needs some mechanical sorting, but you're getting a truck that's had some recent cosmetic updates. The combination of that blood orange paint and fresh wood bed could look really sharp once the mechanical issues are sorted out. 13. We're looking at a 1978 Ford Bronco that's caught my attention, listed at $15,500. And this one's got some interesting features worth talking about. First off, this is a manual transmission Bronco with a 351 V8. That's a desirable combination that enthusiasts love. The 4-speed manual paired with that torquey 351 makes for a fun, engaging driving experience, and the fact that it comes with a MARTI report is significant because that means you can verify its original build configuration and history. The seller mentions newer fuel system and brake work, which is important on these older Broncos, but they're pretty light on other details. The odometer shows 134,000 miles, which isn't terrible for a vehicle of this age, and it's finished in yellow, which is a classic color for these trucks. Now, at $15,500, you're in the middle range for late 70s Broncos. These vehicles have seen their values climb significantly in recent years, especially original unmolested examples. However, the listing is surprisingly sparse on details. You'd want to know more about the condition of the body, frame, interior, and exactly what that fuel system and brake work entailed. The 78 Bronco is from the second generation, which only ran from 78 to 79, making it relatively rare compared to other years. These are known for their rugged capability and classic styling, and they've got a strong following in the off-road and collector communities. 14. We're looking at a 1964 Chevy C10 project truck listed at $3,000, and let me be completely upfront. This is a roller, folks. No engine, no transmission, but there's still something interesting here to discuss. The big selling point on this one is that it's apparently an unmolested original body that hasn't been cut up or modified. And that's actually pretty rare these days. Finding a solid original C10 body from this era that hasn't been chopped, channeled, or otherwise modified is getting harder all the time. The seller's honest about what you're getting. This is basically a blank canvas with a clean Nevada title. The odometer shows 100K miles, rolled over. But without a drivetrain, that's pretty much academic at this point. At $3,000, you're basically buying potential here. These 64, 66C10S are highly desirable for restoration projects because of their classic styling and strong aftermarket support. Being from Nevada, there's a good chance the body is relatively rust-free, which is a huge plus for any project truck. This could be perfect for someone who's been looking to build their dream C10 from the ground up. Maybe you've got a modern LS engine sitting in your garage, or you're planning a classic small block build. Either way, starting with a solid, unmodified body is often better than trying to undo someone else's questionable modifications. 15. We're checking out a pretty special 1979 Ford F100 Ranger stepside that's catching attention at $22,000 OBO. And there's some interesting stuff to talk about here. First off, let's appreciate what makes this truck unique. It's a stepside model, which is definitely rarer than the standard style side beds from this era. What's really cool is that it's wearing its original paint, which is becoming increasingly uncommon for trucks of this vintage. Under the hood, you're getting a freshly rebuilt 302 V8 with less than 1,000 miles on it. That's barely broken in for these engines. The manual transmission has also been rebuilt, and the seller's even throwing in a spare transmission, which is a nice bonus for peace of mind. They've added some choice performance upgrades, including new headers paired with dual Flowmaster Super 40 exhausts. If you know these trucks, you know that combination should make this 302 sound absolutely fantastic. The truck's also sitting on new wheels and tires, which freshens up the overall appearance. At $22,000 OBO, you're in the upper range for these trucks, but you're getting a rare step-side body style with original paint and fresh mechanicals. The fact that it's a Ranger trim level adds to its desirability. These were the more upscale versions with better interior appointments. 16. We're looking at something a bit different. A 1978 Ford F604X4 cab and chassis that's listed at $4,500 OBO. And this is definitely an interesting piece of heavy-duty Ford history. Let's talk about what makes this truck special. First off, it's a 4X4 F600, which is relatively rare, especially with those heavy-duty Rockwell axles. The double-wall frame and 24,000 GVW rating tells you this was built for serious work. With a 158-inch wheelbase and 10 feet of frame behind the cab, this truck could be set up for all sorts of heavy-duty applications. Now let's be honest about the condition. This truck's been sitting for 2 years, and the 361 engine needs carburetor work. That's something you'll need to address right away. However, the seller notes it has good tread on the tires, which is significant given how expensive heavy-duty truck tires can be. The odometer shows 104,496 miles, and it's equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission, which is the kind of durable gearbox you want in a truck of this size. At $4,500 OBO, you're looking at an interesting opportunity here. These F600S were commercial workhorses, and finding one with 4x4 and Rockwell axles isn't common. This could be perfect for someone looking to build a heavy-duty hauler, a custom flatbed, or even a serious off-road rig. 17. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1972 Chevy C10 short bed listed at $27,500, and there's quite a bit to unpack here. Let's start with the highlights. This truck's running a big block, Chevy V8, paired with a 4-speed automatic transmission, which is a potent combination. The sellers added some serious performance upgrades, including Willwood disc brakes up front, a Holley 4-barrel carb, Champion aluminum radiator, and hooker headers. Those Boyd Coddington wheels definitely give it a custom look. Now here's where we need to be transparent. There's some history here you need to know about. The VIN tag is actually for a long bed half-ton, and the cab has been swapped due to the condition of the original. The seller notes that neither the frame nor bed have been cut, which is good, but you'll want to make sure all the paperwork matches up for your state's requirements. Inside, you're getting bucket seats, a floor shifter, and an I Did It tilt column. All nice upgrades. The gauge cluster looks factory, but houses autometer gauges, though the gas gauge isn't working. The door glass has been converted to one-piece windows, eliminating the vent windows for a cleaner look. Some smart modifications include relocating the fuel tank under the bed and adding a spray-in bed liner for durability. The truck's showing 26,243 miles, but given the modifications and cab swap, that number isn't really relevant. 18. We're looking at a 1977 GMC 2500 Camper Special listed at $8,000. And let me tell you about this interesting piece of heavy-duty truck history. First off, this is a Camper Special model, which means it came from the factory with extra heavy-duty components designed specifically for carrying slide-in campers. Under the hood, you've got the mighty 454 big block V8 paired with an automatic transmission. That's a powertrain combination that's known for its torque and reliability. The truck's got some nice features like a tilt steering wheel and factory AC, though the seller's honest about it not working, and it still has its camper tie-downs intact. The odometer's showing a whopping 612,606 miles, but the seller notes it's broken, so take that number with a grain of salt. Now, let's be real here. At $8,000, you're buying a classic work truck that's being sold as is. The red paint appears to be holding up in the photos, but these old square bodies typically have their share of wear and tear after all these years. What makes these Camper Special models interesting is that they came with upgraded cooling, heavier springs, and often different gear ratios to handle the extra weight of a camper. The 454 engine is a big plus. These motors are known for their durability and strong pulling power, and parts are readily available. 19. We're looking at a 1964 Chevy C10 listed at $15,000, but I've got to be honest, this is one of the shortest descriptions I've ever seen for a classic truck at this price point. What we do know is that it's a 64 C10 with a V8 engine and a manual transmission, finished in green. The seller says it runs good, and the odometer's showing 75,000 miles, though it's noted as broken, so that number isn't really meaningful. Now let me be straight with you folks. At $15,000, we really need more information than this. These 64 C10s are fantastic trucks and highly sought after by collectors and enthusiasts. But the lack of details in this listing is a bit concerning. We don't know which V8 it has, what condition the body and interior are in, or what kind of maintenance history we're looking at. The 1964 C10 is from a highly desirable generation of Chevy trucks, known for their clean styling and good bones for either restoration or modification. The manual transmission is a plus for many enthusiasts who prefer the engagement of shifting their own gears. At $15,000, you're in the market for a pretty nice 64 C10, but make sure you get all the details and inspect it thoroughly before making any decisions. These trucks are climbing in value, but you still need to know exactly what you're buying at this price point. 20. We're looking at a 1970 Dodge D100 listed at $5,000. And while the description is pretty brief, there are some interesting points to discuss about these often overlooked classic trucks. This D100 is powered by the 318 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, and that's actually a great combination. The 318 is known for being one of Mopar's most reliable engines, with plenty of torque for truck duty and simple maintenance requirements. The seller notes it runs well, which is promising, though we definitely want more details about its mechanical condition. The truck's showing 76,000 miles and wears blue paint, but beyond that we're pretty light on details. At $5,000, you're in project truck territory, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. These D100S are becoming more desirable as alternative classic trucks to the more common Chevys and Fords. Look, I've got to be honest here. The super brief description leaves a lot of questions unanswered. You'd want to know about rust. These old Dodges were prone to it. The condition of the interior, brake system status, and whether it's been sitting or regularly driven. These 1970 D100S have a unique style with their clean lines and distinctive grille, and they're generally simpler to work on compared to modern trucks. That 318 automatic combination is a solid foundation for either a restoration or a daily driver project.